And Mr. Blair was saying there, many innocent people have lost their lives and many have been injured. Obviously, it's far too early to know what's happening, but he said this...
And to conduct a full-scale investigation.
To hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act.
But hardly has he spoken when it emerges that the Pentagon has also been attacked. An aircraft crashed on a helicopter landing pad. And in the last few minutes, it's been reported that one of the World Trade Center towers has now collapsed.
Well, that's the scene right now in New York. Just one lone stack of the 110-story block of offices that was the World Trade Center. It was attacked about an hour and 15 minutes ago by a small passenger plane. We don't really know what it was. Some people say it was as big as a 737, perhaps even a Boeing 767, which carries 250 passengers. This is a scene that no one in America has ever dreamt of. It is worse than Oklahoma. That's the only other city that's ever come under this kind of a siege. We'll cross now to the ground level shots in New York. This was the moment that the second World Trade Center tower collapsed. Plumes of smoke. There are, even at 9 o'clock in the morning American time, thousands of people working in this district. This is a deeply populated office worker area, not residential.
The building.
50,000 people come into this story in one glance. And I have to report that since the story began at about 10 to 2 this afternoon, we have seen no trading at all, as you would expect, on Wall Street, because Wall Street is sealed off and traders are not being allowed anywhere near their desks, and the two main index are stationary.
Okay, John, we're going to have to interrupt you for a second, because we're crossing over now to the United States to hear reports from eyewitnesses.
Crying and bawling. And I'm standing next to a fireman. He said, yeah, they just bombed the Pentagon too. So that's basically where I saw it. Then I came running down here. Traffic is not allowed past Warren Street. And you see what's here.
Do you know which of the two towers?
The one without the main antenna on it. The second one that was hit.
That's the further south? This more southerly tower?
I think it's Tower 1. I'm not too sure the exact.
And you actually saw it from the top down
I saw
collapsing.
it came sideways like this. It just collapsed in and on top of itself. It was amazing, but very upsetting to watch. The whole thing come tumbling down. So we all thought it was another explosion. Then we looked up. Instead of being two, there's one. And a big plume of smoke.
You were walking or driving?
I was running. I was stopped in the subway around 14th Street. I had to jump out of the middle between cars, run down the catwalk to get out of the subways because all the subways were stopped. And then I just started hoofing it down from West 4th Street. There was only traffic going northbound, everything was jammed going back this way.
So just in case people are just tuning in, tell me again what you saw, what you heard.
Around 6th Avenue and Houston Street, I was trying to make phone calls. I looked up and I heard an explosion, and then I saw everybody in the street react first. People crying, people on the ground, everybody lying down. And then I looked up and I saw this huge plume of smoke and the tower just crumbling, and it just turned into a huge plume of smoke. And next thing you know, there's smoke in one tower, and that's what we're seeing right here. So, and obviously there's people are worried about the press agents and everybody else that went the other way, as everybody else went this way.
When you saw this collapse taking place, could you see if there were a lot of people on the ground near the building as it was happening?
No, I was further north than you were, but I was dead looking at 6th Avenue, the view you see of both towers as you come down 6th Avenue.
Right.
So, and most of this fallout stops about there.
Well, of course, these are the extraordinary scenes. Just to update you, if you're just joining us on BBC One and News 24, both World Trade Center towers in Manhattan have been hit by passenger planes in an apparent terrorist incident. The Pentagon, the seat of American military power in Washington, D.C., also appears to have been hit by a passenger plane. At this stage, we believe that all three passenger planes were hijacked from Boston, flew down the eastern seaboard before hitting their targets. In the last 10 minutes, approximately 1 hour after being hit by a plane, one of the towers of the World Trade Center has collapsed. Of course, 50,000 people worked in these towers. Let's get some more eyewitness reports now.
Doorman, I'm with the fire alarm company. The doorman goes to me, wow, I never seen a plane flying so low. And we looked out at it, all of a sudden, boom, it seemed like it wasn't even real. And we came running over here closer to the place, and all of a sudden we saw the other explosion. I don't know. You know, that's all I saw. I saw a couple of people jumping out of the other building. I seen 2 or 3 people jump out of the building. The first, I don't know if that's number 1 tower, number 2 tower. It's unreal.
Scenes of people fleeing in panic, as you'd expect in Manhattan. Scenes of panic on the streets of Manhattan, of course, after 2 planes hit the World Trade Center towers. One of the towers, of course, has collapsed. There's bound to be speculation about the state of the other tower. We understand that 50,000 people are employed in the 2 towers of the World Trade Center. That's 50,000 people. The first plane that hit approximately 20 floors beneath the top of the building. It burned furiously for about an hour, as did the second tower, before collapsing. The figures of casualties we have at the moment are very low, but bound to be higher eventually, sadly.
I got skinned from my thing here. Real quickly. You were in the, which tower?
I was in B tower. A tower.
What floor were you on?
B1.
What floor?
First one.
What happened? Tell me.
When a big explosion happened, some guy came out, his skin was all off. I helped him out. This is him all over. There's people jumping out of windows. I've seen at least 14 people jumping out of windows. It's horrific. I can't believe this is happening.
Anything else that you saw? Were you there for the second hit by the plane?
About 10 minutes later, the second building went off.
Did you see it?
Yes, I saw it. It just blew up. A big explosion. People started running. It was just chaos everywhere. People jumping out. People just kept jumping and jumping and jumping. And you could still see they were alive because they were flailing around.
The FBI has already stepped in to investigate. It could be possibly a terrorist strike.
It could be. It could be because there was the first one went off and then 10 minutes later this just blew up out of nowhere.
Hard to think that that would just be accidental.
No, I don't think it would be accidental.
Back it up, folks. Back it up. Kenny?
Johanneman.
Spell your name.
Johannemann.
And you were working there?
Yes, I was right there. I was down in the basement, came down, all of a sudden the elevator blew up, smoke. I dragged the guy out, his skin was hanging off, and I dragged him out, and I helped him out of to the ambulance.
Thank you, right?
Westbound, back up, please. Back up, please.
Actually, at this stage, our business presenter, John Terrett, joins us. John, you were telling us earlier that there are 50,000 people who work in the World Trade Center towers.
It's an incredible number, isn't it? Very hard to imagine. 50,000 people employed in the 2 buildings. As a result of what's happening, and it's very obvious from what you're looking at why this should be, Wall Street is closed today. The markets there are not trading. And because business hates uncertainty, 2 things have happened. In London, the FTSE index, our leading index of 100 shares, has fallen through the floor, and at 3:15 this afternoon it was 250 points down. A few seconds ago it was 223 points down. The euro has been rising strongly against the dollar, and also the price of Brent crude oil trading in London has risen sharply by more than $2 a barrel.
John, of course, all sorts of claims and counter-claims of responsibility. We're seeing further scenes, of course, of devastation in Manhattan. Valerie?
Indeed, 3 words, I think: terror, chaos and confusion. First reactions there to what's been going on in New York. You can see there explosions, debris falling out of one of the towers of the World Trade Center. One of them completely collapsed, and we had an eyewitness there talking about people literally throwing themselves from the building, throwing themselves out of the window to see if they could save themselves. Horrific, horrifying scenes there. We're getting reaction already from around the world. Prime Minister Tony Blair here has already cancelled his speech to the TUC and has described the attacks in the United States as the most terrible, shocking event. Now we can go over to Jerusalem and to our correspondent there, Orla Guerin. Orla, first reactions in Jerusalem.
Well, there's a huge sense of shock here, as I think there is everywhere. People are glued to their television screens watching with increasing degrees of horror as these terrible events unfold. There's also a feeling of dread here, a great